Hello everyone, my name is Irfan from Tutorial 3 Group 4. So for this video, we'll be covering Chapter 4, the Management Environment. Particularly, we will be going into the two case study, which is Bad Ride, Bumpy Ride, and the second being Not Sold Out. Okay, so before we actually get into the video, I'll be making a brief introduction on our team members according to the order of appearance. My name is Muhammad Irfan. Next, we have Nazif as the second presenter, Afiq and Farhan as the third and fourth. Going on, there will be Danish, Amanesh, Benedict, and Naim. And for the last row, we have Vimal, Anggun, Arid, and Haziq. Okay, now moving into the first discussion question, which is how do managers influence organizational success or failure? So to answer this question, I have come up with four main points. The first one, managers carry out these four essential functions, which is PLC. So they will plan the path forward, organize workplace structure, leading their teams, and controlling resources in order to achieve organizational goal. If all of these functions are done correctly, it will certainly improve the company's stability and growth. If done poorly, it will lead to confusion, frustration amongst employees, and thus decline in productivity. Second, manager will shape the workplace culture through their behavior and decision. Our textbook show how companies like Software Airline build strong cultures where employees feel valued and motivated. But when managers ignore the culture, teams often become disengaged and unproductive. So as for the third point, manager will turn the plans into action and adapt. As I've mentioned earlier in the PLC function, it's not just about setting plans. Manager must also ensure the organization adapt and respond to real-world challenges. This involves organizing team, leading execution efforts, and making course correction when needed. As for the final point, managers directly affect employee performance and retention. One research paper titled Influence of Employee Manager Relationship on Employee Performance and Productivity shows that teams with strong managers are more productive and loyal. Bad management, on the other hand, leads to disengagement and high turnover.
Alright, so moving on to the second discussion question. Why do managers need understanding of what happens outside their organizations? Give examples of how changes in the external environment can affect their job. So here, there is three main points regarding this question. So the first one is, as any of all the external environmental conditions change, one of the most powerful constraints that managers face is the impact on the job and employment. One of the external environmental that will mainly affect these jobs and employment perspective is the technology. The continuing advancement in the technology will offer many exciting possibilities for how workers work and how the managers manage. However, it also has its own shortcomings and downsides. For example, the technology is changing the way managers manage, especially in terms of how they interact with their employees, who may be working anywhere and anytime. Managers will face the problems of effectively interacting with telecommuting employees who may be working remotely. Therefore, this will lead to the problem for the managers when they want to make sure that all of the works or the objectives are being accomplished. So secondly, changes in external environmental can affect managers in terms of managing the relationship with the stakeholders. In a simple way, stakeholders are the constituencies in organization's environment that are affected by the organization's decisions and actions. Alright, so for example, in a downturn of the economy, investors might demand the cost cutting and higher efficiency, while the employees might worry about their job security. So in this scenario, managers must balance keeping the investors confident, and also they need to keep the employees motivated. As the research performed by the management researchers, they found that the managers of high-performing companies tend to consider the interests of all major stakeholders group. So in short, managers should consider the interests of stakeholders as they will make the decisions for the organization itself. So lastly, changes in external environmental can affect managers when they want to assess the uncertainty. The external environmental can occur a lot of uncertainty that can affect organizational outcomes. In order to assess that uncertainty, managers need to use the environmental uncertainty matrix. So this matrix refers to the degree of change, predictability of change, and also the complexity in the organization's environment. So this matrix is divided into 4 cells. Each of the 4 cells represents different combination of degree complexity and degree of change. Now, this is where the external environmental will affect managers' work. So looking up to the cells, managers have the greatest influence on the organizational outcomes in the cell 1 and have the least in the cell 4. Although they rarely have the influence over it, managers would prefer to work in the least unpredictable circumstances if given the option, but unfortunately, they rarely can control that choice. So therefore, it is clear that the changes in external environmental can affect managers in assessing the uncertainty.
The economic component of external environment consists of factors like interest rate, inflation, and unemployment rate, which could alter the decision-making process to 3 main aspects. First is via job and employment. Managers have to take care of this aspect during considering scenario to ensure the survival of the entity while maintaining the benefit of the employees. For example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, a report by The Guardian revealed that Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey permitted the employees to fully work from home forever during that period. This promotes a decentralized basis to prevent health implications. The allowance for employees was increased to support the expenses to purchase home office supplies to ensure high productivity and efficiency. Next is the environmental uncertainties, which is the degree, predictability, and complexity of changes in the environment. Managers have to come up with a solution to obtain the most optimal result from it. For instance, to adapt with technological changes which accelerated the economy, Malaysian government invested 250 million to ARM Holdings, a multinational semiconductor and software design company, as an approach with the vision of becoming the major chip player. According to Fortune, this measure embarks the effort to achieve National Semiconductor Strategy. Lastly, managing stakeholders' relationship. Stakeholders are entities affected by the organization decision. For example, the compliance in environmental, social, and governance (ESG) and the shifts to a green economy are becoming important focus for managers, as stakeholders are driving towards the enforcement of sustainability. In addition, ESG reporting has been made compulsory for registered companies under Bursa Malaysia. According to PricewaterhouseCoopers, a sustainability report described the ESG impacts from the entity's activity. This sparks the decline of negative externalities and execution of Sustainable Development Goal (SDG).
Thank you. Now let's move to the next question. Why is it important for the manager to pay attention on demographic trend and shift? To answer these questions, first we need to understand what is the meaning of demographic. Demographic means the characteristic of population used for purpose of social studies. It means it study about our age, gender, education, race, and locations. So, how is it important to the manager? Now, let's move to our first point. Manager need to understand demographic because demographic shape external environments. Therefore, by understanding demographic, manager able to influence consumer preference, labor supply, and societal value. Manager must monitor this trend in order to adjust business strategy, and remain competitive in diverse environments. Now, let's move to my second point, which is strategic planning and growth. Managers need information about age and gender, which allow managers to anticipate market size, consumer needs, and talent availability. This forward-thinking approach helps organizations to invest wisely, innovate, and avoid being blindsided by societal change. Next is adapting to global workforce trend. Different countries got different traditions and work style, this also lead to different workforce style. For example, countries like Africa and Asia experiencing population booms, leading to more young labor and aging populations like China and US might increase demand for healthcare. Last but not least is understanding the generational difference in workplace. Different age cohort like baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z have distinct work style, communication preference, and expectation. Therefore, managers must understand these differences to lead diverse teams effectively and create a productive work culture.
Businesses operate within an external environment, which is factors, forces, situations, and even outside the organization can affect its performance by the factors such as interest rate, inflation, and employment or unemployment rate. These forces can be stable, which is predictable and slow changing, or dynamic, which is highly uncertain and fast changing. As for environmental stability, it is when external conditions are predictable and slow changing. Meanwhile, environmental uncertainty is when managers cannot accurately predict changes due to complexity and dynamism. Usually, managers will experience a mix of both stability and uncertainty, depending on their industry, market dynamics, and external factors. The level of stability or uncertainty varies depending on factors like the industry, market dynamics, and global conditions. Therefore, managers must remain flexible, updating their strategies and responding proactively to changes in the environment. The local example that we choose for environmental stability is Tenaga Nasional Berhad, TNB. Environmental stability occurs when external factors change slowly and predictably, allowing businesses to plan confidently for the future. They face a stable environment, which is the first one is the market demand is consistent. The demand growth went up from 3.9% in 2023 to 6.5% in 2024. This indicates an increase of 66.67 in the growth rate from 2023 to 2024. The second one is regulation are predictable. In 2024, the TNB received structural regulatory approval under RP4, ensuring stable investment and predictable tariff changes. And the third one is the competition is steady. TNB remains Malaysia's largest electricity utility, holding over 55% market share. Despite moderate fragmentation, its strong position and stable regulatory environment creates steady competition. TNB plans to invest 10.3 billion in 2024 until 2027 to strengthen this national. The local example that we choose for environmental uncertainty is AirAsia Group Berhad. Environmental uncertainty occurs when the external factors are unpredictable and volatile, making it difficult for businesses to forecast and plan accurately. Such sources of uncertainty include the first one is rapid technological advancements. AirAsia launches the Super App, expanding beyond flight bookings into food delivery, ride e-hailing, e-commerce, and financial service to compete with giants like Grab and Shopee. The second one is sudden changes in government policies. AirAsia may face major disruption from sudden government travel bans, quarantine rules changes, and unpredictable border closure across Asia during the COVID-19 pandemic. The third one is disruptive competitors. AirAsia Malaysia faces rising competition for Batik Air and Firefly, which are rapidly expanding their domestic and international routes. To respond, AirAsia is adding 2,000 weekly flights, introducing AirAsia Plus benefits, and expanding its fleets to maintain market leadership.
And now, moving into the first discussion question for Bad Right Bumpy Right. For 11, what role does the CEO play in an organization culture? What role do other leaders or managers play? And what role should they play? So the CEO doesn't actually just talk about culture, they actually build it through every decision and action they make. Their priorities will become the company's priorities. If the CEO consistently rewards short-term profits over ethics, that will become the culture. If they value transparency, they will share information openly. The CEO's meetings, emails, and even body language will send cultural signals that influence the entire organization. As for the managers, they are actually the ones that reinforce the culture in action. They take those big picture values and make them real for their teams through who they hire and promote, what behaviors they praise or correct, how they run the meetings, and how they handle mistakes. As for what all leaders, CEOs, and managers alike should do to be a healthy culture, is to first be crystal clear about expectation. What is considered good or bad in the company culture? Align all of the system, whether it be hiring, reviews, reward, with those company values. Next is to address any violations immediately. And lastly, regularly check if the company's employee actually walk the talk. Like an example at Uber, when the leadership say win at all costs but doesn't define ethical boundaries and managers don't push back, you will get cultural collapse. The fix actually start with leaders at every level taking responsibility for the culture they create daily.
Let's move to the next questions. Now, we're going to discuss about 7 dimensions of organizational culture. First of all, we need to understand what is organizational culture. The definition is share value, principle, tradition, and ways of doing things that influence the way of organization member act. We're going to discuss this dimension under the lead of Travis Kalanick, which the founder and CEO of Uber. First point is innovation and risk taking. I can say that it's quite high because it encourages aggressiveness and risk, even legally questionable. So, Travis Kalanick's focus on organization goals. Second is attention to details. It's quite moderate as the operation details was important for scaling, but often overlook legal risks. Without a close attention toward ethical issues, it's hard for the company to sustain. Third is outcome orientation. I could say that it's quite extremely high because Uber management prioritise result over ethical conduct, since its motto itself hypergrowth at all costs. Next is people orientations. It's very low because the CEO itself has little concern for the employee well-being. Toxic and exclusionary environment, especially for female worker. This because confessional behavior was celebrated. Next, team orientation is very low because collaboration was not valued. Encourage competition among the workers. This because Travis Kalanick focused on individualism over teamwork. 6. Aggressiveness. Obviously, it's extremely high because it's emphasized on win at all cost mentality, conventional approach to business. This can be proved through the celebration of success with chest bump and push-up contests among males. They also alienated women. Last but not least is stability, which very low because the CEO itself involved with a lot of controversy and regulatory clash.
Going over the third question for Bad Right Bumpy Right, which is which management view do you see played out here? Is it either the omnipotent or the symbolic view? And explain why. Okay, going over the management views, there's two main ones, which is omnipotent and symbolic. Omnipotent is where the leader is directly responsible for the organization's success or failure, while organization outcomes reflects the action, values, and decisions of the top managers. While for the symbolic view, leaders have limited control. External forces such as the economy, regulation, market, which shapes the outcome more than internal decisions. Managers are seen as symbols that who represent change but cannot always control it. As for the case of Uber, the omnipotent view is more evident as it is wide. For example, founders in influence. Travis Kalanick is an aggressive, win at all cost culture, especially in Uber's aggressive, computational, and ethical questionable culture, which directly backs to the founder and CEO Travis Kalanick. His personal style and stated values, which is be hustling, toe stepping, principal competition, and hyper growth at all costs, weren't just symbolic; they were the operating manual of the company, directly shaping employee interactions, strategic decisions, and overall work environment. The case presents the cultural elements as created by the leadership, not merely existing around it. For the next point, direct actions. This leadership decision driving, which drives key problems, as many of the specific negative mentioned previously, which developed a secret tool like Grey Ball. Grey Ball is to evade authorities, ignore the local regulation, and allegedly mishandling of harassment claims, like such as hiding data breaches and presented as a conscious decision or consequences of actions taken directly by Kalanick and his leadership team. These aren't portrayed as an unavoidable result of external market pressure, but as a specific choice reflecting the leadership and omnipotent control over strategic and ethics. The other notable direct actions were taken by Uber, which is the mishandling of a rape case, which happened in India due to the poor ethical management of the response in India. Spying on rivals using internal programs to track competitors, data breaches and cover-ups, hiding massive breaches from users and authorities, and the unsafe vehicle leasing, providing drivers with defective cars. Other evidence for the omnipotent view is a toxic culture, which shows a poor collaboration and ethical issues, encourage confrontational over collaboration, ignores employee well-being, and fosters harassment and unethical behavior. As stated as the toxic leadership shown in the Uber explores how destructive leaders behaviors negatively impact employee well-being and organization outcomes, often creating a toxic climate like one described in Uber, stated by Pelletier 2010. The next point should be leadership consequences. Kalanick directly linked to scandals which led investors to demand leadership change. The board believed in replacing him, it would reset the company's values and future. Kalanick was also forced out leadership as seen as a solution, as is essential for organization to have a mechanism in place to recognize and address these behaviors promptly, as stated by Bilai Zagamount 2024. Lastly, why does the symbolic view is less applicable for Uber's case? This is because Uber's crisis was internally driven, not merely due to the market or regulatory pressures. The leadership transition from Dara Khosrowshahi aimed to rebuild Uber's reputation. Kalanick's behavior and decisions shaped the toxic cultures and ethical failures. And finally, the Uber's case has strongly demonstrated the omnipotent view of the management leadership that directly determined the organization outcome.
Alright, so moving on to the next question, I'm going to discuss about what advice about organizational culture would you give to the new CEO. So to answer this question, I'm going to give two answers, and one is going to be about organizing, and the second is going to be about controlling. So in terms of organizing, the new CEO Dara should be able to build a culture that aligns with the organization's core values with the people's values. Culture has been defined as the way of life of an entire society. Therefore, as soon as the new CEO is elected, he must be able to implement the people's values and the company's values in the company, and at the same time, such as providing uh, safety measures like a GPS tracker for customers. This organizational culture that resonates among employees and customers allows for more modifiable policies, procedures, programs to better support identified shared cultures. For example, the new CEO can make an ethical culture such as treating people with respect no matter the gender, background, or religion to support the shared values. This will make the people think or the world think that this company is a respectful company just as everyone in each culture is taught to. That is why in the slide it is stated that to the extent that shared values are proper for the company in question, company performance may also benefit from the culture, which means that in order for Uber to be a good company once again, then the new CEO and the overall company must know how to respect and align the people's values in terms of culture with the company's culture as well. All right, so moving on, in terms of controlling, the new CEO, Dara, should be able and must be able to reinforce these cultural values through employee recognitions in the organization. Why? Because recognition programs make people feel valued and they can directly impact business success. This can motivate people to submit more to Uber's core values and in the company so that we're basically killing two birds with one stone. For example, the new CEO can provide formal recognition awards such as career building seminars for employees that are clear and empathetic towards customers. Furthermore, in regard to women who suffered a toxic work culture, as stated in the issue, the new CEO can also use this as an opportunity for awarding women who are standing up against unfairness and gender inequality. They can be awarded for promotion for their bravery, and this will gradually stop the work's toxic work culture that is toxic to women. Research from Gallup also shows that employees who feel recognized are 56 less likely to look for a new job, making recognition a powerful tool for retention. A thriving workplace doesn't, sorry, a thriving workplace culture doesn't even happen by accident. It's intentionally built through meaningful recognition. When employees feel valued, they stay longer, perform better, and contribute to a more positive work environment and cultural environment. And they also might bring more customers as well. And that is why in the slide it is stated that organizational culture has the potential to enhance organizational performance and employee job satisfaction. And this can make also a sense of certainty about problem solving.
So, moving on to the next question. What part of this situation disturbed you the most, and what career advice as ethical behavior you take from this story? So, for the first point is about the most disturbing situation. From an ethics perspective, the part of situation disturbed me the most are how unethical behavior is rewarded or ignored by an organization and the managers. For example, in the case of Jeremy Cavill at Society General, the company may have turned a blind eye to unethical behavior of employee, but usually make big profit. This show of a deeper cultural problem where company focus more on profit rather than principle, which give the wrong ethical message to the employees. So for the next point is advice is what you do is more important than what you say. Manager also set the tone through their reward and punishment practices. The choices of when to reward with pay increases and promotion send a strong signal to employees. As we said earlier, is rewarded for achieving impressive result in an ethical, questionable manners. They indicate to others that those way are acceptable. When an employee does something unethical, manager must punish the offender and publicize the fact by making the outcome visible to everyone in the organization. This practice sends a message that doing wrong has a price and it is not in employees' best interest to act unethically. So that's all for the questions.
Here's the 10-point summary. First, the cause of event. Susan Fowler, former Uber engineer, disclosing the toxic work environment by Uber management, which sexualized women and aggressive working culture. Here's the beginning of Uber. Uber was founded by Travis Kalanick, who found it hard to find cab back in Paris at 2008, which resulted in the innovation of Uber's app. The fast progress. Globally, Uber became the largest e-hailing companies with over 14,000 employees in around 600 cities all across the world, with the valuation of $70 billion. The toxic environment. Kalanick toxic work culture, which promote extreme atmosphere and cause plethora of negative consequences and perception from the stakeholders. Now, we proceed to the scandals. Kalanick scandals regarding arguing with the Uber drivers about low pay rate and the development of Brainwall, which is a technology to identify and deny drivers who disobey the contractual terms. Now, the crisis misconduct. The negative measure of conducting rape case in India, which the executive mishandled the confidential medical records. Now, proceed about the illegal operation. Uber evaded the law enforcement and leases unsafe cars for drivers in Singapore, and so on. Now, the leadership problems. Major stakeholder pressure Kalanick to step out of the CEO position. Now, the new CEO. The former CEO of Expedia was appointed to change the management method and strive with Uber. Lastly, the changes in the future. The differences between the new and the former CEO management approach has sparked the hope for the stakeholders to change Uber for the better. That's all.
I'm Vimal and I will be covering question 16. Tableau staffs its international offices primarily with host country nationals. What are the advantages and disadvantages of this staffing strategy? So, starting off with the advantages. The first one is better cultural understanding. Hiring local employees helps Tableau understand the customs and traditions of each country better than using expatriates. This makes it easier for the company to adapt and succeed in different markets. Second is lower labor costs. Employing locals is far cheaper than training and relocating expatriates to the host country. This reduces operational costs and makes international expansion much more affordable. Third is easier communication with local stakeholders. This is because local employees can communicate more naturally with stakeholders such as clients and suppliers, avoiding misunderstandings and improving business relationships. And our final advantage is an improved public image. By hiring locals, Tableau is able to show its respect for the local community, build trust, and strengthen its reputation in the host country. On to the disadvantages. First is weaker ties to headquarters. This is because when the international offices are staffed by locals, workers may feel disconnected from the global company's culture and strategies. Second, communication barriers. These communication barriers could be things like workers speaking different languages or having different working styles and cultural expectations, which can create challenges when trying to coordinate between the local offices and the headquarters. Third is limited career development for host country employees. Local employees may have fewer chances to be promoted into higher global leadership roles compared to expatriates. And finally, is reduced control by headquarters. When local employees manage the office, headquarters may have less direct control over the important decisions and daily operations.
Now, let's move on to the next question. Do I agree that the company will benefit if more executives spend time in international offices? My answer is definitely yes, and I will explain why based on Christian Chabot's experience at Tableau. First, spending time abroad gives a better understanding of local culture and challenges. When Chabot went to London, he realized he previously lacked a real understanding of the employees outside the US. Being physically present allowed him to experience the culture and manage people more effectively. Secondly, it improved connection with international employees. Before that, many employees felt disconnected and unimportant compared to those at headquarters. By being there in person, Chabot showed that he valued them, which built a stronger trust and better motivation among the teams. Next, it helped support international growth. During his time in London, Chabot helped Tableau expand operation worldwide. He better understood regional markets and was able to guide smarter and faster expansion. Finally, there was a positive organizational impact. Cabot's successful experience encouraged Tableau to motivate other executives to also spend time abroad. This created a stronger, more unified global company culture. Overall, based on Chabot's experience, I strongly agree that companies benefit when executives spend time in international offices. It improves leadership, employees' relationship, global expansion, and overall organizational success.
Hi, I'm Arid. I'm going to address question 18. As Tableau executives get ready to spend time in the company's international offices, how can they prepare for the cultural differences they will encounter? To succeed internationally, preparation is key. Today, I will focus on 3 essential and best steps based on few references that Tableau executives can take to prepare for this. The process is very much like planning for a journey. First, executives need to research and learn about the country they are visiting. Like traveling. Before you travel, you always do basic research about culture, customs, and local practices, right? The same goes for international business. Understanding cultural values, communication styles, and local business etiquette is essential to avoid misunderstandings. As Moran and his colleagues mentioned in Managing Cultural Differences, doing your homework before arriving helps pave the way for stronger, more respectful business relationships. Second, executives should seek local guidance. No matter how much you study beforehand, real understanding comes from connecting with people who live and work in that culture daily. A better approach is to invite representatives from the respective countries to share their experiences and explain important cultural practices, do's and don'ts before the executives even leave. According to Livermore, gaining local insights early not only bridges cultural gaps but also shows respect and willingness to adapt, which are crucial for building trust with international teams. And lastly, once they have researched and seek for local experts, executives should engage in training. Brake and Walker argue that formal cross-cultural training is key to developing cultural intelligence, which is the ability to adapt leadership and communication styles across different cultures. This preparation will help the executives handle challenges like different negotiation styles, decision-making processes, and management expectations effectively. Because, yes, theoretically you can, but practically, if you don't learn about it, it will be hard for you. So by taking these steps, Tableau executives will be much more better equipped to support and inspire their global teams. Thank you.
Moving on to the next question, 419. What are some of the challenges Tableau will face as it hires 1,000 new employees in 1 year? The first challenge will be managing cultural and communication difference. As mentioned in the 5th paragraph in the case, cultural difference, time difference, and geographic distance can make it difficult to sustain the same management practices at home and abroad. As mentioned in the paragraph 6 of the case, geographically remote workers can feel disconnected from a global company, particularly when they report to the management they have never met in person at their headquarters. This can make employees feeling disconnected because they may not have regular face-to-face meetings with their managers or co-workers at headquarters. And it will also lower their motivation. If an employee feels that they are out of the loop or forgotten, their motivation and loyalty to the company can decrease. The third challenge will be training and onboarding a large number of employees. Tableau will hire 400 of new employees beyond their Seattle headquarters, and Tableau's expansion will include opening new international offices. The first reason is the quality can drop. With so many people joining so fast, it's easy for training to become rushed or inconsistent. The second reason is different experience. For example, employees in international offices might not get the same good training as those at headquarters.
Right now, I will present a 10-point conclusion for the Tableau case study. The first one, Tableau successfully expanded internationally by offering data visualization tools to clients worldwide. The second one, CEO Christian Schreiber emphasized the importance of physically being present at the international office. The third one, spending time abroad help Tableau better understand local cultural and management challenge. The fourth one, his actions strengthened employee morale and supported faster international growth. The fifth one, Tableau mainly used host country national for staffing, which is improved cultural and understanding and reduce cost. The sixth one, however, this staffing strategy can weaken communication with headquarters and limit global career opportunities for local employees. The seventh one, Tableau now encourage more executives to work abroad to improve connection and support expansion. The eighth one, executives preparing to go abroad should research local culture, seek advice from local teams, and undergo cultural training. The ninth one, hiring 1,000 new employees in 1 year will challenge Tableau's ability to maintain company culture, communication, and engagement. And the last one is overall, proactive international management, cultural awareness, and strong leadership are critical to managing global growth successfully.